everyone, I'm Dan Giusti. Today I'm being challenged to cook a super affordable 4-course meal highlighting frozen ingredients. Each dish that I'll be making today costs less than $3 a serving. We're going to talk about how sometimes using frozen ingredients is actually better than using their fresh counterparts. And to make these meals, we'll be using your normal household kitchen equipment. Stovetop, an oven, food processor, and a microwave. Because frozen fruits and vegetables are harvested in their prime and frozen immediately, they tend to be very flavorsome. They also tend to retain a lot of their nutrients, more so than some fresh vegetables that have been left to sit on shelves for a long time. When you freeze fruits and vegetables, it breaks down the structure, and sometimes that leads to a product that ends up being mushy when you cook it. But sometimes the fact that the freezing process breaks down that fruit or vegetable can be used to your advantage when making certain preparations. Should I just start talking about peas? So first up, we're going to be making an appetizer with frozen peas. So it's going to be a crostini topped with crushed peas and then finished with caramelized shallots, bacon, and a little bit of fresh basil. Frozen peas are excellent because to get fresh peas are very difficult. There's a very short season to get fresh peas. You have to shuck peas, which is very labor intensive. And even when you shuck them and even when they're in season, they're very difficult to get good quality fresh peas at, say, your random supermarket. So frozen peas, definitely a great product to use. We've got the peas right out of the freezer. We're gonna put them in the food processor with a bit of Parmesan cheese, lemon juice, a touch of water, olive oil. We'll add a touch of salt and a little bit of pepper. And just make what is basically a coarse puree. We don't need anything super fine. It's nice to have a little bit of texture. We're gonna process it and we'll go from there. This is a kind of a room temperature to cold preparation, but the point of using the frozen peas is because it really helps retain the vibrancy of the color of the peas themselves as well as the flavor. It's not uncommon when using green vegetables that they tend to start to kind of become a little drab in color. And that's usually because of heat. Because we started with them when they were frozen, they're still very cold right now, and they will never reach a temperature that kind of compromises either the flavor or the color. Give it a taste. Once you get it where you want it, we're gonna put it in the fridge immediately because we don't want it to, again, really get to room temperature just yet. As I mentioned, we're gonna be topping the crostini with caramelized bacon and shallots, and we're actually gonna do this in the microwave. Simple is not only in the preparation, but also in the cleanup. So we're using one less pan. We're starting with bacon that's basically right out of the pack. Because it's still semi-frozen, it makes it much easier to cut. The other thing is when you're cooking something on the stovetop, of course, there's a chance that it can burn, things get too hot in the microwave, that's not gonna happen. So it's a little peace of mind while you're cooking as well. Microwave techniques. So we're gonna cook this bacon intermittently. If you were to put bacon in the microwave for 5 minutes, it'd probably explode at some point. We're gonna put it in there for a minute, we're gonna take it out, we're gonna stir it, we're gonna put it back in. We're gonna slice this shallot, and then that's gonna get added to that bowl once it comes out. And the reason we cook the bacon first before adding the shallots is so there's some fat for the shallots to cook in. If the shallots went in here with the bacon from the beginning, shallots would probably just steam. Now there's hot fat, we'll add the shallots, we'll put it back in the microwave, and now this stuff will start to caramelize. Sizzling nice. Nice sizzle. What else can we talk about? Prep the bread. This is a crostini. This is not a crostini, this is a baguette. We're making crostini, so we're gonna be slicing this fresh baguette. I just stabbed myself. I'm gonna do it again. We're using a bread knife. Bread knife's a great investment. I wouldn't spend a lot of money on a bread knife because you can't really sharpen them that well. You spend $15 on a bread knife, it lasts you probably all the time you're gonna need a bread knife. But cutting bread without a bread knife is difficult, as well as it ruins your knives. It's always a good idea to put some kind of fat when you're trying to toast something because it conducts the heat. If we put these under the heat just like this, it's gonna maybe burn char more than it is gonna toast. So I just have a little olive oil and I'm just gonna rub it in with my fingers. We're gonna use the broiler, which will apply high heat just to the top of this. The shallots and bacon are now nice and crispy. The shallots have turned brown, kind of like tiny mini onion rings. We're gonna rub the toasted bread with a little bit of raw garlic. We don't want raw garlic in the preparation because it tends to be too strong, but just by brushing a little bit on the crusty bread, we'll get that flavor, and then we're gonna be ready to plate. And then in terms of the basil, we're gonna tear it. Basil is one of these things that if you were to cut this basil and let it sit even for a few minutes, it starts to oxidize. There's no reason not to just take some fresh basil leaves and just tear little pieces on top. And that's pretty much it. They're looking right. It's delicious. You know, it's crunchy on top, still nice and soft underneath. You taste the peas, different textures. The bacon's crispy, the basil's nice, it lends to the peas perfectly. Very delicious. So again, super simple dish, but a great example of how frozen peas are a win. They're easy to prepare, they're delicious, they store well in the freezer. All right, so we're into the main course now. Frozen cauliflower, farm to frozen cauliflower. We're gonna be making a dish of pasta, more specifically orecchiette, with a sauce made from frozen cauliflower, anchovies, and chopped parsley. So these are florets, so they've already been broken down into the little pieces. So the work has been done for us. When you freeze fruits and vegetables, it does break down the fruit or vegetable. And in the case of a sauce where we want the cauliflower to basically cook down to a sauce consistency, cauliflower is perfect frozen. Another thing about frozen cauliflower we didn't mention, it is significantly cheaper than fresh cauliflower. The thing to keep in mind is yield. This cauliflower has been cleaned. These are florets. This is 100% yield. If you get fresh cauliflower and it says it's, I don't know, $3.50 a pound, you're gonna lose things. When you start to break that cauliflower down, there's leaves, there's a stem, all these things, that goes away. The yield on a whole cauliflower is about 55%. So the price per pound goes up significantly. So that's important when you're trying to compare prices between fresh and frozen produce. So to start the sauce, we have a few cloves of garlic here peeled. These things are gonna cook down. Don't get too concerned about how thin it is. You know, you see people talking about garlic has to be paper thin, all this. It's nonsense. We're gonna cook garlic with equal parts of butter and olive oil, and we're gonna caramelize it a little bit in the pan with anchovies. Anchovies, big word. We're gonna kind of try to debunk the idea of anchovies not being something you wanna eat. It's a very wonderful agent to add to any dish. There's gonna be oil in here. You could use that oil. I tend to drain the oil off. I think it gets a little funky. If you've never opened a tin of anchovies, they are fillets of fish. When you look at it, you see little bones, and that might freak you out. Those little bones will cook down to nothing, and you won't taste it. And then we're gonna turn this on medium heat. And without doing anything, those anchovies within minutes are really gonna dissolve into nothing. And I think this will give you a little more confidence about eating anchovies, because I think when people see all those anchovies in there, they think when they're gonna eat this dish, there's gonna be anchovies everywhere. That's not the case. And in fact, the flavor is just gonna promote kind of this savoriness, something that you're probably used to tasting from a variety of ingredients. It's not gonna taste fishy at all. What I really like about this sauce is when people think pasta sauce, it's either some kind of olive oil based sauce or it's tomato based. You rarely see sauce consistency type sauces on a pasta that are not tomato. So that's what this will create. Stir, stir. Yeah, anchovies. You like that? Delicious. This you could just, honestly, you get a piece of bread and just put it in here, call it a day. Save some time with the whole cauliflower thing, you know? So now we're starting to see the garlic caramelize. The rest of the mixture has caramelized. I've managed to say caramelized 4,000 times. Caramelized, 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 caramelized. And then once we get a little color on it, we're gonna put the whole bag. We have 1 pound of the cauliflower florets, and then water. I think people think it's odd to add water to a dish. Why wouldn't you add stock or something like that? Well, what stock would we add to this? We don't want this to taste like chicken. We don't want it to taste like beef. We want it to taste like cauliflower. We want it to taste like garlic. So we add water. There's plenty of flavor already in this pan and a lot of intensity. Water is just gonna allow the cauliflower to cook down and form a sauce without interrupting the flavor. Put a lid on it, simmer it for about 25-30 minutes, really allowing the cauliflower to break down. It will form a sauce consistency, and then we're all set to finish the dish. When cooking pasta, obviously we boil it in water. We season the water with salt. We taste it, make sure it tastes the way we want it, whether it's like the ocean or less salty than that. Just important to taste it. Everything you cook, you should always taste it. That's it, easy, done. Pasta's gonna take 8 minutes, 6 to 8 minutes. You hear the term al dente a lot, which is to the tooth, which is firm, but you know, people say, well, that's how you need to eat pasta. You eat pasta however you wanna eat pasta. If you wanna eat it hard, you eat it hard. If you wanna eat it soft, you eat it soft. You wanna eat it al dente, you make it al dente. The last component to the dish, parsley. When you go to the store, there's usually 2 types of parsley. There's Italian flat leaf parsley, there's curly parsley. Curly parsley doesn't taste like anything, so I'm not really quite sure why they sell it. It's a strange thing to me. We are using Italian leaf parsley. I am not going to pick the leaves off of this. I'm going to cut everything. I'm gonna use the stems. The stems are very tasty. Stems are also very juicy and succulent. A lot of people are quick to discard stems of items. They're really tasty, and they also have a lot of flavor. We have this remaining. We wanna store it to keep this fresh, obviously. We're gonna use parsley in all the dishes we make from now on because it's delicious and it's versatile. We're gonna wrap it nice and tight. And it's a plant, so we want to keep it moist. And what happens is the paper towel absorbs it and kind of distributes the water throughout the paper towel. And that stores in the fridge very nicely. So pasta's done cooking. We're gonna add the drained pasta. We're just gonna add all of this chopped parsley. So we're feeling good about that. So we'll go ahead and plate. I'm gonna use this little ladle here to plate. Now, this is pre-grated Parmesan cheese. Now, this was grated at the store, so you can usually find this. A lot of the cheeses that you find on the shelf that are pre-grated typically have some kind of stabilizing agent in them. You don't really want that. But if you buy a block of Parmesan cheese, it's gonna cost you $20 a pound. This cheese is high quality Parmesan cheese. It was $5.50 a pound. You can buy it in pretty small units. So to me, it's a pretty appropriate usage here. And that's it. It's delicious. Very satisfying dish. The sauce is not this super thin thing. It's got some oomph to it in terms of texture. The parsley lightens everything up. You don't taste anchovies, you taste savoriness. And again, cheese on top of anything is good. So a really great alternative to, say, a tomato-based pasta dish, and we're using frozen cauliflower. All right, now that we've finished the pasta, we're gonna move to the side dish. So for our side dish to go along with the pasta with cauliflower sauce, we're gonna make what is kind of like a warm salad, highlighting frozen spinach. I think the only things that come in a box in the frozen aisles of frozen spinach. And basically what we're gonna do, we're gonna saute it very briefly in a pan with golden raisins and walnuts, and we're gonna dress it with a vinaigrette made from tahini or sesame paste. When you go to the supermarket, you're usually gonna find that chopped frozen spinach comes in a box of 10 ounces. That 10 ounces of frozen spinach is the equivalent to 1 pound of fresh spinach cooked down. And if you were to compare the prices, the price of this frozen spinach is much, much cheaper. Beyond that, this frozen spinach, it's actually cooked already. So what they do is they harvest it, they blanch it, and then they freeze it immediately, and then it's chopped. So again, we have a product that's been harvested at its height and then it's frozen, versus baby spinach that you buy in the store that's in a bag. It's hard to know when it was harvested, how long it's been in that bag, and then again, from a value perspective, we're really getting that with the frozen spinach. So this is spinach that came directly out of the box into the colander, allow some of that excess water to drain. The next step is we're gonna wring it out, and this is what's really interesting about frozen spinach. Because you have this product that has been picked, then cooked, then frozen, and then when you thaw it back out and wring it out, you're really getting all the moisture out. And what you're left with, it's this kind of fluffy product that works really well for what we're calling a salad. And we are going to dress that warm salad with a vinaigrette. The base of this vinaigrette is tahini, lemon juice, a little bit of salt, pepper, and olive oil. Tahini, which is a sesame seed paste. It's a very simple ingredient, and it's absolutely delicious. I find it very nice in a lot of cold preparations and dressings and things like that as a nice addition. So we start with olive oil. We're gonna basically flavor this olive oil to flavor the spinach. So I'm gonna take this garlic clove and I'm gonna cut it into 3 large pieces. That garlic, it's going to flavor the oil. I have a dried red chili. They tend to keep their spice. They tend to keep their heat. Oftentimes when you buy dried chilies, like many spices, like chili flakes in a glass container from the supermarket, because they're broken down, they tend to lose their spice quickly. So you might go to your cabinet and pull out your red chili flakes that you bought in 2007 and realize that they don't taste like anything. It's because it's a chili and it just dried out. It's important when handling these chilies after you break it into the pan to wash your hands. Otherwise, you might find yourself in an uncomfortable situation. I do know from experience. Yes, thank you. Chilies in the pan, wash the hands. So we're gonna toast these chopped walnuts. I actually purchased them chopped. They're very inexpensive. Originally, I was thinking about using pine nuts, fresh pine nuts for this dish, only to find out that the pine nuts that would go in this dish would literally cost more than the spinach itself. Doesn't make much sense, and the walnuts are delicious. When you buy nuts, they tend to be dried out. You need to do something to them, and toasting them is gonna kind of put life back into them. They're gonna get aromatic. We're gonna start to see them brown a little bit. The next thing to put in here is going to be the raisins. They're gonna absorb a little bit of the olive oil, take on some moisture. So again, now we're gonna have this like very kind of sweet, savory situation in our salad, which is really nice. I'd also like to say that these flavors, I feel, go extremely well with the cauliflower pasta. So I'm gonna taste a small piece. Okay, we're there. So straight away when you taste the spinach, you taste garlic, you taste chili, maybe a little too much chili, a little zinger. That one chili I put in here, it's kind of getting to me, but a little zip on that one. Nonetheless, it's delicious. So that's ready to go. So we're ready to plate. We want to always err on the side of function, but as we know, presentation is important. So here we are with our salads. And I know some of you are thinking like, that's not a salad, but it is. We have these kind of deep flavor, the toasted walnuts, the sweetness of the raisins, and then a little bit of lemon zest. It's a nice way to round it out. This salad literally costs like 80 cents per portion to make. I mean, it's a lot of value here. Again, This texture from the frozen spinach is super cool. It's very light. For people who are kind of adverse to the idea of using frozen spinach, I would say to them that there are applications like this that I would say frozen spinach is actually the better option than fresh spinach. It gets a lot of richness from the tahini vinaigrette. Raisins are sweet. Nuts are roasted and deep in flavor. It's just a really delicious kind of side dish for this cauliflower pasta we have. All right, done with the savory courses. We're gonna move on to dessert now. So we're gonna make the dessert now, and guess what? We're using frozen fruits, frozen wild blueberries, and frozen strawberries. We're gonna make a crumble. People make crumbles, they're a simple dessert, delicious dessert. Become even simpler, and in this case, even tastier, using frozen berries. So I wanna talk about these wild blueberries first. Many people have never had wild blueberries. I'll be honest, I don't think I've ever seen a wild blueberry fresh in the supermarket. Quick season, these are things that can't be grown. So anytime you can get something wild is a real treat. And in this case, actually the frozen wild blueberries are approximately the same exact price as you would pay for fresh farm berries. I'm gonna get my hands like purple here, but they're tiny. In my opinion, they're much more intense in flavor. You have much more access to antioxidants when eating these wild blueberries. I feel like when you use fresh whole blueberries and you cook them, they do tend to break down a lot. These will stay entirely intact through the cooking process of this crumble, which is really nice. We're gonna mix these whole strawberries, wild blueberries, sugar, cornstarch. Cornstarch in here is going to aid in the thickening of this. Now, this on its own is delicious. If you put this into this dish and you served it like that, everybody would be happy. Put a little lemon zest in it, it's a whole nother level. It brings out different flavors in the berries. Excuse me that my hands are purple and look disgusting. Apologize for that. It's almost like if you think about adding like an herb to a dish, it adds a different level, a different complexity, and that's really the purpose of the lemon zest here. And then we're gonna finish off the dish with these little doozies here. So these are a relatively common ingredient, depending on what kind of household you come from. Amaretti cookies. They're almond flavored cookies, but they're actually flavored with apricot kernels. So stone fruits, we're talking about plums, peaches, in this case, apricots, cherries. Inside of the pit, there is a kernel inside of that. It tastes of almond. So actually these cookies are flavored with that, not flavored with almond. I don't think it's nice to have an even texture. I like that some of it's small pieces and crumbs, some of it larger pieces. I think we're always focused on trying to make everything even, and it's actually pretty boring if you think about it, because every bite's the same. If you get bored of the dish, it's not really a good sign. The berries release their juices. They started to thicken back up because they're taking on this like ambient heat from the oven, so we need to let this cool. Right now it's super hot. As it cools, it's gonna set up a little bit. So while it sets up, we're gonna whip some cream. We're not gonna add any sugar to this. There's enough sweetness in this dish. In fact, the cream will actually cut the sweetness because there will be no sweetness in the cream. It will almost be this cool, refreshing element to the dish. All right, so we're all set here. Last course, berry crumble with a little bit of whipped cream. So it's super tasty. I think when you do desserts like this, they can easily become too sweet. This is super balanced. You taste the lemon. It's kind of have this aromatic quality to it. Strawberries are completely intact, but they're completely soft as well. The wild blueberries are completely intact. There's a beautiful sauce that's thickened to kind of bind everything together. Nothing wrong with a little bit of whipped cream. Again, it just kind of cuts through it and also adds a temperature difference. Crumble's still a little bit warm. We had some cold, fresh cream. Delicious. Not only was it super simple to make, and it's absolutely delicious, if you ate this, you wouldn't assume how much it cost. It only cost $1.31 to produce this dish. So there you have it, 4-course meal, less than $3 a serving for each of those plates, highlighting frozen foods with simple, delicious recipes. I hope today shows you that using frozen foods are not just about kind of cutting costs, but also adding qualities to dishes that you might not have thought you could have added in the first place.